Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Inspirational Interviews. I'm Hannah Levin from heartfeltwellbeing.com, and I'm super thrilled to be here with Rashanda Yates today, who is going to talk with us about finding self-love as the remedy for binge eating. Before we get to her interview, I just want to remind you all that we have a challenge coming up in this group, October 19th through the 23rd. And that is the One Habit to Thrive Ayurveda Super Habit Challenge. And if you haven't been through one of my challenges before, I strongly encourage you to sign up for one. They're totally free. It's an opportunity to learn more about Ayurveda and how it can support you, but more importantly, to make shifts in your life that aren't huge, but have huge impact in terms of your energy, your mental clarity, your digestion, being able to lose a little weight if that's something you're wanting to do, all naturally, and utilizing the force of nature, which is aligning with nature's rhythm. So if you're interested in that, please sign up. I'll post the link below for the One Habit to Thrive Super Ayurveda Habit Challenge, and super excited to join with you all for that adventure. And today's guest will perhaps tie into our relationship with food and help us get to a better place. So before bringing her on, I just want to mention that Rashanda Yates is on her path, and we just discovered that we both have backgrounds of being school teachers. She was a former music teacher, and I'm a former art teacher, and that's super cool. Now we're both coaches, helping people realize their full potential. So her little bio that I have is: on her path to overcoming binge eating and losing 60 pounds without dieting, Rashanda Yates discovered she could enjoy food and enjoy life. Her goal is to empower women like you to be confident, love your body, and love your relationship with food. So let me bring her on. Welcome to Inspirational Interviews, Rashanda.
Thank you so much. I'm
Yay!
just laughing about that funny connection that we made right
I
before.
know. Yeah, who knew? We're both former. I tell people I'm a retired school teacher.
Oh yeah, that's a good way to put it. Yeah.
I had enough in 11 years. I'm retired. I'm on
Retired or
to
recovering.
right recovery. That too. Awesome. So tell us a little bit about what happened in your life starting back around 2015.
Sure, yeah. So actually, funnily enough, this was gearing up to my last year of teaching,
Mm,
actually. And I had just really, really hit a wall at that point. A lot of things were going on. I was depressed. I'm looking back, I can see that I was depressed. At the
yeah.
time, I wasn't really aware of it, but I had reached my what I think is my highest weight. Of course, like
Mm,
I had sort of buried my head in the sand on that too, but I just know that I was feeling very weighed down,
mm,
physically very immobile. Had trouble breathing. Like I would get winded walking to my car,
mm,
like from the grocery store or whatever. And I just felt very it was a very low point in my life where I was not loving myself. I was not caring for myself. And I knew it. And I had a lot of shame around that.
mm,
And, every day was really me waking up and just kind of feeling like I was always trying to catch up or trying to improve and just couldn't do it.
mm,
So, I would come home. I remember I got into this cycle where I had started using food to comfort myself,
mhm,
and I was aware I was doing this. It was really obvious because basically I would, I remember I would hit about 10 o'clock in the morning and I would already start thinking about like what I was going to eat when I got home.
mhm,
And I got into this pattern of leaving school and immediately going and getting like chicken fingers and fries and like stopping at a convenience store and getting like a pint of ice cream and like a
Mm.
candy bar and like all of this stuff. And I would just like sit on the couch and watch Netflix and just like eat all of this food. And again, I was aware that this was a problem, but I had no idea at that point how deep the problem really was.
Mm.
But that was sort of the beginning of my awareness that
Mm-hmm.
like I was not feeling good and beginning to realize like something needed to change.
Mm-hmm. And did that food that was like you were looking forward to at the end of the day or planning, did that feel like a reward to you for getting through the day?
Yeah, really good question. That I think is how it was serving me in my life at the time.
Uh-huh.
Again, I would go on a long journey from that moment.
Mm-hmm.
It was really a journey of like self-discovery from that
Mm-hmm.
point on and finding my purpose. And when I
Mm-hmm.
look back on that, I can see that what I was really lacking in my life was a true sense of purpose.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not saying that that's what everybody would be lacking. I think that we all find what it is that we personally need. But at the time, it was like the reward that I was getting from that was numbing out. It was
Mm-hmm.
being able to disconnect from a lot of misery,
Mm.
and a lot of needs not being met and just feeling basically out of purpose.
Yeah. Yeah. Wow. So what was the turning point for you?
Yeah. So what happened was up until that point, I had been um, basically on diet after diet after diet,
Mm.
right? Like,
I bet a lot of people here can relate.
oh man. I really thought that if I would just lose weight, that would solve my problems. I
Mm-hmm.
really truly thought that. And looking back, I'm like, wow, it's so interesting. Like, I have a very different view on it now. But I got to a point in about 2015 where I don't know, I just had this big aha moment that just came. I don't know, I think it came from a few different places, but I decided to stop dieting. And it was a very firm decision that I made that really changed the trajectory of my life. I decided that like weight loss, the way that I was doing weight loss wasn't actually worth it because I was miserable. And like
Mm.
the thing is, like, I had been sometimes successful with weight loss and had, gotten down to my quote unquote goal weight and was still miserable. So it's like, I was like, what am I doing this for? You know? And so I was like, well, if I'm going to lose weight, if this is going to happen, it's going to happen my way. I'm going to be happy, period. And when I made that decision, I truly feel like the universe just brought into my life everything that I needed for that
Mm.
to be possible for me. And I
Mm-hmm.
ended up losing 60 pounds without dieting. And so, what transpired to make that happen really ended up being far more valuable in the end than the actual weight loss itself.
Mm-hmm.
It's funny how that happens.
Yeah, right. The the journey is the destination in many ways.
Yes, I mean,
Yeah.
it turns out that's actually true.
Right. Right. Yeah. So what is the number one shift that you needed to make? The,
Um, so I'm gonna actually talk about this by talking about something that I've noticed
mm-hmm.
with people who struggle with binge eating, which is that the biggest mistake that I see people making is that they're trying to solve this binge eating problem with weight loss solutions. And it was a mistake that I made for many years. I struggled with binge eating for 10 years,
Mm-hmm.
10 years of me feeling like this was going to be the last time, promising myself very firmly, very sincerely, I'm never going to do this again. Then like doing it again, feeling so ashamed of myself, feeling like such a failure,
Mm.
and then doing it again to like kind of make myself feel better, and then just repeating that cycle over and over again to the point where I really felt like I couldn't even trust myself
Yeah.
anymore.
Yeah. That's what erodes is self-trust. And
Yes. And
yeah.
it feels so helpless.
Yeah.
I remember thinking, am I going to struggle with this for the rest of my life?
Mm.
You know? And so, but what I didn't realize was that when I kept trying to address the problem by using weight loss tools,
Mhm.
well, that was like trying to, that's like you need a new car battery and you change your flat, you put on a new tire, you know?
Right.
It's
Right.
like, it's just using the wrong tools to solve
Yeah.
the problem.
Mhm.
And by using the wrong tools, I just kept making the problem worse and worse and worse.
Yeah. It also actually makes me think about the saying like you can't solve a problem with the thinking that created it. Like it
Yes.
was the system of the dieting of the weight loss culture that was keeping you imprisoned, right?
I
In that
love that you brought
cycle.
that up.
Yeah.
Because
Great.
that is literally one of my favorite quotes.
Hmm.
I reference that quote all the time.
Mm.
And it was absolutely 100% exactly that, that I like that lower level of consciousness created the problem.
Hmm.
And what that means is the way I was thinking was just unhelpful. I'll put
Hmm.
it that way. I was going to say wrong, but really I want to say it wasn't serving me.
Hmm.
And when I went to a different level of thinking, that is what solved the problem. It basically just took the problem away from me.
Hmm.
And so the number one shift that I made was I shifted from thinking about it as a food problem to really thinking about it as a life problem.
Mm.
You know, because what really happened was when I started to address how I was thinking, that changed my entire life.
Yeah.
It didn't just take away my binge eating problem. It took away relationship problems.
Hmm.
You know, it took away all kinds of other specific problems that I was having, money problems,
Mm.
you
Yeah.
know, a lot of different issues got resolved. And it was a shift in my paradigm
Right.
about the way that I was handling my life.
I love that so much. That's so much of what I teach is mindset. Everything comes back to mindset and what do you
Yes.
believe? So if
Yes.
we change our beliefs, then a whole new reality is possible.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. I would
So
say that
exciting.
it's impossible to not shift a reality when your beliefs change, you know?
Right. They have to.
Yeah, they just have to. They just do.
They have to.
And your behaviors change as a result of
Yeah.
that. And they just do as well. And it's easy.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, we talk a lot in the Vitality Circle, the program that I run, teaching Ayurveda to women in their evolution. We talk a lot about identity evolution and thinking about who it is that you want to be next and then acting like that person. How does that
Mm,
person make decisions? How does that person act in a certain situation? Right.
yeah.
And just role playing until it becomes you.
Mm,
Right. Like, what is that other wisdom that you can bring into the situation? So it sounds like you had that opportunity and you took it. So let's fast forward to now. You are now a coach for women who struggle with binge eating. And what advice would you give someone who's ready to shift away from binge eating to a new
mm.
paradigm?
Yeah. Um, the first piece of advice I would give is a little, or maybe even a lot, counterintuitive.
Mm-hmm.
Um, it's something that I really, really, really struggled with. Because I will talk about like one of the thinking sort of traps that I got into. where I was trying to manage my food.
Mm.
And one of the traps I got into was thinking that I had to be perfect all of the time with my eating.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm.
what I found was that when I just let go, when I let go of that, when I let go of that grip of control, then things started just flowing more effortlessly. So, the first piece of advice that I would give is to find your willingness first. Because what I found was that I wanted, like, again, I just wanted a weight loss solution. I thought like losing X amount of pounds was going to solve my problem, not realizing that was actually making my problem worse.
Mm.
I wanted the same solution in different clothes, basically.
Right.
You know? So just because, this way of eating is packaged a certain way, I'm thinking, okay, well, this one will work for me. This is totally different. No, it was the same thing. I was still looking for a program to solve my problem. So when I finally got willing to let go of that, that's when everything changed. Now, I find a roadblock to willingness is shame.
Mm.
You know, when we're in shame, we feel isolated. We feel like we're unworthy. We feel like until I get this problem under control, I'm not good enough. I used to think that my body wasn't good enough. My
Yeah.
skin color wasn't good enough. Like I was basically trying to fit some really undefined mold. I don't even know what mold I was trying to fit. And, that became a really big roadblock to me actually receiving the solution because, it turns out I'd heard the correct quote unquote right answers for me. I'd heard them before, but I dismissed them
Mm-hmm.
thinking, no, that's not going to work for me. Or I wasn't willing to do it because it didn't sound like what I thought I wanted,
Mm.
which was really, I wanted to like lose weight. That's all. That was like the end, like period. And when I started working through shame, that I think was what helped me to be willing pretty quickly. Now, like working through shame is not a quick process necessarily, but it can be. Like it doesn't have to be hard. It's all what your expectation is. Like you can just tell yourself, you know what? I'm just going to allow it to be easy.
Mm.
But if you
Mindset
can,
again.
I'm sorry, what?
That's mindset again,
Oh,
right?
yes,
Like
exactly.
if we decide it's going to be hard, it's going to be hard. If we
Yes.
decide that it can be easy, we
Yes.
allow that possibility to exist, right?
Exactly. And it
Yeah.
took me a long time to learn that.
Yeah.
But now that I know, I do want to share it with people that they
Yeah.
don't have to struggle the way that I did,
Yeah.
you know. It doesn't have to be that way for you, but you like if I can do it, then anyone can do it,
Yeah.
you
Are
know.
you familiar with Sonia Renee Taylor?
No.
Okay. Well, I brought her up in the Vitality Circle meeting yesterday. She wrote a book called The Body is Not an Apology, which you might be interested in checking
Oh, I
out.
love that title already.
And she talks about we have to shift the paradigm where we live in a culture where only certain people have the right body,
Mm.
right? And that thereby means that everybody else has the wrong body. And yet, the only thing that is true for all of us humans that are alive is that we have bodies. We all have bodies and they all work. They
Yes.
might work in different ways, but they all work. Like for us to be alive, our bodies have to work on some level, right?
Mm.
And
I
so
love
her whole
that.
thing is like, we have to change the conversation. Nobody's in a wrong body. There's no wrong color. There's no wrong size. There's simply each of us recognizing who we can be in this lifetime. So it's not an excuse to not take care of yourself, but it's an invitation to live fully into the full expression of who we can be in this lifetime. And anyway, it's just been so inspiring to me. I listened to an interview that Brene Brown did with her, talk about understanding shame. Right?
Oh,
Um,
yes.
so
Brene
anyway,
Brown,
I
I
was
love
just
her.
like, I was like, Rashanda would love this if you don't know about it. But anyway,
Yeah, I'm definitely going
she'd be right
to.
up your alley.
Okay, cool. I'm going to ask you for that again after.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
I
yeah.
could, because I love that. And it reminds me of something that I was thinking about today, which is that, like when, for example, when I was, thinking that I was in the quote unquote wrong body or a not good enough body, I was looking at people whose bodies I thought were good enough and were worthy. And I'm looking at them thinking, oh, their life must be
Right.
perfect.
It's so
They must
easy
have
to
this
do that.
amazing life. And then I came across this TED Talk. I can't remember what she does, but she's a model. I can't remember if it's like a Victoria's Secret model or whatever. And her whole TED Talk was describing how she and most models feel completely insecure.
Yeah.
And what their experience is really like of having their bodies constantly picked apart, constantly judged, constantly like photoshopped, and like I realized, whoa, like I love myself more than she does. My experience in the world is of acceptance and I feel happy most of the time. I don't feel anxious most of the time. I don't feel like people are judging me most of the time. And it just really hit me, that quote about like judging other people's outsides, comparing other people's outsides to your insides or something like that, that your internal experience is what really matters. And we are so focused on the external that
Absolutely.
we are
Yeah.
missing our lives. We are missing the experience of living our lives,
Amen. Yes. Yes. Absolutely. So I want to come back to your expertise. We got some questions from members of this group. So I'd just like to ask you these. So this is from Carolyn, and she says, what do you feel are the reasons women have problems with weight, binge eating, and comfort eating? What helped you most to break through the cycle? So you've kind of already answered this. Maybe this brings up something more you'd like to add. And she said, was it more mindset or habits or both?
Yeah, great question. Whenever, so I want to throw in a little disclaimer that I am not a medical professional. And I do think that it is important to, check with your medical professional, because there are medical issues, there are biological issues, there's a lot, like the first part of the question was, why do women struggle with weight? Well, there are so many reasons why, certain people have more weight than other people. Like genetics is a huge factor as well. So I'll speak more to the mindset part of that. With, throwing in a little bit of hope into the mix, where like I've seen so many people who thought that they couldn't lose weight, who actually were able to, when they had the right mindset, So it's all about the story that we tell ourselves. But as far as like mindset versus habits, or both, definitely both. And I think that for me, it started with mindset. Once I had the right mindset, then the habits they were just easy. It just didn't. I'll give you an example. I was someone who was like binge eating several times a week. And when I got the right process along with a mentor, so someone to like point out roadblocks to keep me on track and to just say, keep going, like just follow the process. Within 2 weeks, I was no longer wanting to binge. I became a person over those 2 weeks who just simply did not want to binge. And I think sometimes we have this idea that, oh, it's a process, it's a struggle, and I'm going to struggle for the rest of my life. It's like, no, 2 weeks and bam, I just didn't want to do it anymore.
Mhm.
And I remember picking up one of those huge gourmet donuts. This was like, maybe a week after I call it being recovered, after I got recovered. And I sat down to eat this donut, but I was also working on my computer, and I took like a couple of bites of the donut and then unconsciously pushed it away. And then a few moments later, I realized what I had done. I recognized what had happened. And I literally out loud said to myself, "Who are you?" Because it was just such a surprise. So, I bring this up to show like I did not try to make that happen.
Mm.
My mentality shifted, my paradigm shifted. So, I did intentionally build habits, but there's also like there's this opportunity where things just do not have to be difficult. They don't have to be this struggle or take a lot of effort. So,
That's great. Thank you. And Piper wrote in a question kind of pertaining to what I teach about Ayurveda, but she said, is binge eating a trauma or survival thing, or does it have to do with your constitution? And so the constitution question was about Ayurveda. And I would say from an Ayurvedic perspective that anybody can binge eat. It's not a particular constitutional thing, but that it originates from mindset or pain or shame. So how would you answer that?
yeah, that's another really good question. And I think that it can be, and this is not based, I'll just be transparent. I don't have research, I'm just looking at observations, and like looking at my own life. But I believe that it can definitely be a trauma response. And I know that it was for me. But also, and these could be interrelated, there's just a brain-based kind of like takeover that happens where your brain-based reward system is actually hijacked. That's what's happening when someone gets into binge eating. So I can see that happening without necessarily having the trauma. So for example, I've spoken to people who said, I don't really have any, like, I didn't have a rough childhood, like nothing really happened, and they struggle with binge eating. So in any case, your brain is a factor where, the reward based system in our brain that's really set up to help us survive is really sort of malfunctioning and turning against us.
Yeah. So it's incorrect communication that is going on there. That drive. Yeah. There was something in there that I was thinking about, and now I've lost it. And we are coming right to the end of our time here. I was going to say from an Ayurvedic perspective, we look at weight and not having a clear relationship with authentic hunger as protection. So that we feel hungry when we're scared or nervous or feel unpleasant emotions. Or we keep extra weight on our bodies to protect ourselves from fully being seen or really being vulnerable to the world. It's a protection. So just energetically, that has been very powerful for me to learn about, especially working with clients who are wanting to lose a significant amount of weight. And I found that to be very true in terms of their internal experience. Of their relationship with the weight and with eating.
I could see
whether
a
it's
lot of
binge
power in
eating or
that.
just, yeah. It's really interesting. So I have loved this conversation. I feel like we could talk for several more hours. Tell us where people can find you and what else they can do with you.
Sure. So I have a podcast called the Ending Your Binge Eating Podcast. So definitely, check that out. I do have just a free gift to share to your followers. They can find, I think that you were going to post that link, but it's at
Yeah, I'll post that
sinfox.com.
link that you gave me.
Okay, great. Sinfox.com / Rashanda Yates. And then, I do coaching programs that helps take you from feeling completely out of control to feeling completely at peace and feeling free in your life and around food. So those are the ways that people can interact with me.
Excellent. Thank you so much for being
Thank
here and
you.
sharing
This was
your
so fun.
story. And yeah, really, really grateful. And there's some wonderful. Can you see the comments that have come in?
I cannot.
Yeah.
No, I wish I
Oh,
could see them.
oh, well, I can read them to you. Well, just a couple. One says,
Oh,
loving this
yay.
interview so far, especially the idea that a weight loss solution is the wrong tool for binge eating.
Mm,
And then another says, I can relate to eating when scared or nervous,
mm,
recognizing your hunger. Yeah. Yeah.
yes.
Wonderful. Well, thank you everyone for tuning in today. Thank you, Rashanda, for being here and sharing your wisdom and your gifts and your possibilities, right? It's inviting people into a new possibility for us. So thank you for leading the way and giving us hope in the world.
Thank you so
Thank you so
much
much
for
for
having
being
me.
here. All right. Take care.